All right, knowledge seekers, let's talk about that feeling. You know the one. You're listening maybe to a podcast or you're watching something, and boom, a native speaker says something fast or the accent changes, and suddenly you're lost. Just trying to catch up, wishing you could just, get it. Frustrating, right? Wanting to follow along without hitting rewind constantly. And if you're bracing yourself for like another boring lecture on active listening or textbook drills, let me just stop you there. Because seriously, who actually has time for that stuff anymore?
Exactly. And that's precisely why we're doing this deep dive today. To flip that whole idea, we're digging into our source, fun and effective English listening fluency boosters. To spill the secrets, we want to show you how to make your listening practice not just work, but be, well, genuinely enjoyable. And this isn't just about making it fun on the surface, it's about the why. Why enjoyment actually helps your brain learn and remember better. We're talking about injecting real excitement, real connection into how you listen.
That's the mission. So get ready. Over the next few minutes, we're going on a bit of a journey. This deep dive is packed with tips, ideas, stuff to really transform your listening. Doesn't matter if you're just starting out or if you're pretty advanced already. We'll cover why using your interest is like a superpower. Finding amazing free resources, and even how to use those mistakes, the ones we all dread, as actual learning tools. So yeah, let's dive in. Okay, let's unpack this first bit. We hear make learning fun all the time, but is it just like a nice bonus, or is fun actually essential for really getting good at listening? Why do those traditional methods often feel so ineffective? What do the sources say about why enjoyment really matters?
Well, it's fascinating, actually. The sources show it's not just about feeling good. It's about how your brain works. It's about tapping into the reward system and getting past something called the affective filter. You know those dry, boring methods, the ones that feel like homework? They often trigger stress or just plain boredom. And when you're stressed or bored, this mental barrier, the affective filter, it goes up.
Okay, like a shield.
Exactly, like a shield. And it actively stops the new language stuff from getting to the parts of your brain that actually learn and store information. It's almost like your brain is defending itself against things it finds boring or maybe even a bit threatening.
Right.
But when you actually enjoy the listening practice, your brain releases dopamine. And dopamine isn't just about pleasure, it's directly linked to better memory, better focus, more motivation. The research in our sources is clear. Enjoyment lowers that filter. It signals to your brain, hey, pay attention. This is good stuff.
Makes sense.
So your brain becomes way more receptive. It starts soaking up vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation much more easily. So it's not just saying goodbye to boring methods. It's saying hello to, well, a brain that's primed and actually eager to learn. And it retains what it hears. Progress fueled by passion, not just persistence. It's a total shift.
Okay, that really clicks. It's like you're hacking your own brain chemistry a bit. So if enjoyment is the engine, where's the fuel? The sources mention this treasure trove of free resources. But, most of us know about podcasts, Netflix, YouTube, right? What's the specific insight from the sources on choosing these things effectively? How do we really supercharge listening beyond just finding something vaguely interesting? What's the trick?
That's a great question, because just listening to anything isn't quite enough. It's about being strategic. Yes, the sources highlight podcasts, YouTube, streaming, they're amazing tools, but the real inside scoop is about applying ideas like comprehensible input and scaffolding. It means finding content that's not just fun, but also just the right level of challenging.
Okay, not too hard, not too easy.
Exactly. That sweet spot, often called the I+1 level, input that's just slightly above where you currently are. So if you're a beginner, maybe a super fast political debate is just going to be noise. But maybe a YouTuber explaining a hobby you love with good visuals, making a bit slower, that could be perfect. And the sources also stress variety. Don't just stick to one thing. Narrative podcasts, for example, they're great for following stories, complex ideas. Explainer videos build specific vocabulary. Sitcoms, they expose you to natural chat, slang, cultural jokes,
Yeah, the rhythm of real conversation.
Precisely. So the key is to consciously look for stuff that fits your level, genuinely hooks you, and ideally gives you a mix of styles, topics, voices. That way, every time you listen, it's actually a powerful learning moment, not just background noise.
That's really practical advice for finding the right stuff.
Yeah.
But okay, once we have it, the sources also say how we listen matters just as much, right? It's not just letting the sound wash over you. So for someone wanting to go beyond just hearing to actually processing and remembering, what does active listening really look like? Especially thinking about these ideas like note-taking ninjas or predicting what someone's going to say.
Yes. Absolutely. That shift from passive to active is where the real learning kicks in. The source material talks about a few techniques. First, that note-taking ninja idea. It's not about writing down every single word that can actually make you miss stuff. It's more about selective notes, jotting down key phrases, new words you hear in context, maybe the main idea.
Okay, so not a full transcript.
Definitely not. It just helps take some load off your brain, frees up mental space to focus on understanding what's coming next. Plus, you have something concrete to look back at later, which helps lock it in.
Makes sense.
Then there's spotting the important stuff, training your brain to filter, to pick up on the speaker's main point, the key details, ignoring the fluff. You learn to notice clues, like when someone emphasizes a word, repeats something, or gives a summary.
Right, the signals they use.
Exactly. And then this predicting idea, the sources mentioned, it's really powerful. It's not psychic powers. It's about active guessing. As you listen, your brain uses everything it knows, context, vocabulary, grammar, even culture, to anticipate what might come next. When you guess right, it reinforces those connections. Faster processing next time. When you guess wrong, that's a huge learning opportunity. It shows you exactly where a gap is, and your brain works to fill it. It turns listening into this kind of interactive puzzle, boosting understanding and memory big time.
Wow. Okay, I can totally see how that predictive thing makes it much more engaging, less passive. Now, let's talk about accents and styles. The idea of finding your English-speaking BFFs, I love that phrasing. But for a lot of learners, all the different accents, the slang, it can feel really overwhelming, not friendly at all. Do the sources give any tips on how to handle that initial, like, whoa, I can't understand this feeling? And what's the real advantage of connecting with specific creators beyond just making it less boring?
That's a really important point, the overwhelm. And that's where the BFF idea actually helps tackle something specific. Our sources touch on this thing called perceptual narrowing. Basically, when we're babies, we can hear all sorts of sounds from any language. But as we grow up speaking our native language, our brains kind of specialize, and we lose sensitivity to sounds that aren't in our language. That's why different accents can sound so tricky later on.
Oh.
So connecting with specific creators you genuinely like, it gives you consistent, repeated exposure to authentic speech patterns. And that consistent exposure, especially to different accents and chat styles, is vital. It helps retrain your brain, not just for words, but for the rhythm, the intonation, the stress, even those little fillers people use, the
stuff textbooks never teach you.
Exactly. And when you feel a connection to the speaker, you like them, your anxiety goes down, which, remember, lowers that effective filter we talked about. You're more willing to listen closely, even if you don't catch every word, because you're actually engaged with the person. So this friendly immersion builds comfort and confidence with real spoken English in a way lessons just can't. You become more flexible, more adaptable for real-world conversations. You're building this mental library of how people really sound.
Building a relationship with the voice builds a bridge to the language. I like that. Okay, next point. This one hits home for probably everyone learning a language. Mistakes. We're usually taught to avoid them, feel embarrassed by them. But the sources say, mistakes, bring them on. Flip the script, make them your secret weapon. How do we actually do that? How do we use mistakes when they just feel bad?
Yeah. It's a huge mind shift, but incredibly powerful. The source talks about error analysis, which basically means turning mistakes from failures into, really useful diagnostic tools. Instead of getting discouraged, you learn to see an error as personalized data, information about your specific learning process right now. It tells you about your current interlanguage, that unique system you're building as you learn.
Okay, so how does that work in practice?
There are sort of 4 steps. First, identification. You notice the mistake or someone points it out. Second, analysis. This is the key. You ask, what went wrong? Was it a sound I misheard? A word choice? Grammar? Maybe a cultural thing. Like if you keep mixing up 13 and 30, that's a specific sound and word issue to focus on.
Right, pinpointing it.
Exactly. Third, hypothesis. Why did I make that specific mistake? Was the speaker too fast? Unfamiliar accent? Did I just not know the word? And finally, targeted practice. Now you know exactly what to work on. Instead of just vaguely practicing listening, you might look for videos specifically about number pronunciation or focus on telling apart certain vowel sounds. This whole process explains why reframing mistakes works. It turns that vague frustration into a clear action plan. It pushes you forward precisely where you need it. Every error becomes like a little signpost pointing to your next improvement.
That's brilliant, turning roadblocks into a roadmap. Love it. And speaking of practical things, let's talk about this fun tip from the sources, the mystery sound challenge. Huh, sounds entertaining. What's the real learning benefit here? How does guessing, like a sizzling pan sound, actually help our English?
Yeah, the Mystery Sound Challenge, it's more than just a game. The sources point out it helps activate what are called semantic networks in your brain. And it encourages multisensory integration. Basically, our brains learn way better when more senses are involved. So you hear a sound, sizzling pan, creaky door, whatever, and then you try to say it in English, either naming it or describing it. You're creating this strong link between the sound, the concept, and the English word.
Okay, connecting sound and language directly.
Exactly. It goes beyond just seeing a word written down. You're embedding it through experience. It makes the vocabulary stickier, easier to remember and actually use later because you've connected it to something real. It's a great low-stress way to build richer vocabulary and context.
Learning through experience makes total sense. And hey, speaking of useful things, as our bonus goodie for everyone listening to this deep dive, we put a detailed script of this whole conversation up on our website. Perfect if you want to follow along, check the exact phrasing of these ideas, or even give your reading skills a workout too. Double win. So let's wrap this up. The big takeaway here: English listening practice does not have to be a chore. By understanding why enjoyment matters, by choosing resources strategically, by listening actively, by embracing all those different voices, and yes, even by welcoming mistakes as teachers, you absolutely can transform how you learn. So crank up the volume on something you love, ditch that feeling of dread, and get ready to unleash your English listening superpowers. We really believe learning should be a blast, right? A journey of discovery, and these ideas can make it happen.
So what does all this really mean for you, the listener? It means that embracing joy, curiosity, and a smart strategy in your learning. Well, it changes everything. It's not just about learning English faster. It changes your whole approach to gaining any new skill or knowledge. Just think for a second. How could applying these principles, finding genuine engagement, participating actively, learning precisely from errors, how could that transform learning something else? Maybe a new hobby, tackling a challenge at work, even just understanding a complex subject better. It's really about building a more effective, more enjoyable, and more sustainable way to keep growing, far beyond just listening skills.